If John isn't making sales, we say, okay, let's get on him about making sales. But perhaps we should ask, why isn't he making sales? Someone says, he isn't making enough calls. We say, okay, let's get on him about making calls. Well, maybe we should ask another question first. Why isn't he making calls? Well, it's because he isn't getting up early and getting out into the marketplace. We say, okay, let's get on him about getting up early and getting out into the marketplace. Well, perhaps we should ask just one more question. Why isn't he getting up early and getting out into the marketplace? Now we have probably gotten to the heart of the problem. Perhaps it's something personal, problems at home, not his sales skill. The real problems are usually about 3 or 4 questions deep. So if you get good at asking questions, you can save yourself a lot of time by getting right at the heart of the matter when dealing with other people. Otherwise, you tend to waste valuable time just finding out what the problem really is. Now here is the last part of time management. Learn to think on paper. From all of my experience working on many projects and in many countries, one of the major time savers is thinking on paper. It is so important to take things out of your head and put them on paper, then work from the paper. Building your business is a lot like building a house. You take the ideas out of your head, put them on paper, and then build from the plan. We have a saying on this idea: operate from document, not from thought. It's just about over when a person wakes up in the morning and says, let's see, what shall I do today? Too late, right? The best thing you can do now is to take today off and at least plan tomorrow. Let me give you 4 major ways to think on paper. The first is a journal. I spend a lot of time talking about journals in my lectures and programs, primarily because it is such an invaluable tool for the serious student of the better life. A journal is merely a gathering place for all the good information that comes your way, from sermons, from books, from lectures, from business conferences, magazines, thinking time, research, any source of information that you feel is worth keeping. Don't let the good ideas of life escape you. Remember, most good ideas usually only come by once. Get into the habit of capturing them with pen and paper by making daily use of your journal. Now maybe you won't write in it every day, but at least make sure it's with you every day. Here's the second way to think on paper: a projects book. This is simply a ring binder with tabs in it to help you keep track of all the current people and projects you are involved with and need to work on to make all the parts of your life work to the maximum. If you are working with people, give them each a tab in your projects book. Then under this tab, you keep a running account of all the current information you need to know about that person: performance, family, goals, strength, needs, perhaps even some graphs showing recent progress or comparisons to past performance. Essentially, you make a note of all the information you need to know so that when you sit down to have a meeting with this person, you have all the pertinent facts there before you in order to have a meaningful and productive conversation. Without this habit, it's so easy to take up time talking with someone and get so very little accomplished because most of the meeting ends up by being devoted to bringing you up to date on the facts you could have already had in your projects book.
Everybody, let us say together: lead and grow your wings on the way down. See, in order to control your destiny, you've got to be a risk taker. You got to be willing to risk people talking about it. You got to be willing to risk someone saying no. You got to be willing to fail again and again and again. You're different. You're an entrepreneur. You're strange. You're not like everybody else. We live in a world where we're told more about our limitations rather than our potential, and so most people just can't see themselves doing better. But you're different. You see some things they can't see. And I encourage you, every one of you in this room right now, you're here for a reason. How many of you know people who should be here? Raise your hands, please. Yes. But you know what? They're in their rightful place. Their rightful place is where their thoughts have brought them. Their true place is where their thoughts can take them. Everybody is in their rightful place. Here's something else. Seek out positive information. I want you to write this down. My Facebook page is brown.less. Every day we post a positive message there. Every day, brown.less. Because you're in this room, I want you to write this down. Because we're going to send you, we're going to do something called presentation power. You're going to get a chance to view some videos that will give you some directions. But more importantly, I'll tell you what I'm going to send you. I'm going to send you 7 power strategies of how to be a powerful storyteller. So email me at yes@lesbrown.com and say, send me the 7 principles. Mention that you were at this convention. We'll send that to you free. It will give you a guideline how to tell your story. When I started off this presentation, I started off telling my story. I was born in the poor section of Miami, Florida, in Liberty City. Born in an abandoned building with a twin brother. You remember I told you that? My mother worked on Miami Beach as a domestic worker, making up beds, cooking for families. Remember I told you that? See, your story is your power. How many of you have gone through some things? Raise your hands, please. How many of you have experienced some things in your life? Raise your hands. How many of you have periods in your life like me where you're temporarily insane? Raise your hand, please. Your story. The presentation power will tell you how to tell your story. I've given lectures at Harvard, Yale, spoken around the world, telling my story. You got a story too. Here's what the power of the story does, and why it's important in your presentation and building your organization, and why it's going to give you the upper hand in how to recruit people. And how many like to get A players? Raise your hands, please. Good. Here's what your story does. Write this down. Distract. See, how people live their lives is a result of the story they believe about themselves. When you're presenting one-on-one or a small group or in a large group, when you tell your story, you're creating an interruption. When you're telling your story about the business of being on a path of creating financial independence, you're interrupting their story, what psychologists call the self-explanatory style. So distract. Let us say together, distract. Here's the other one. Say dispute. When you are going through your presentation, and we're going to teach you how to do this, you're dismantling their limited belief system where they've been programmed to believe only in having a job, the journey of the broke, where they're miserable. They go to work, where they pay them just enough to keep them from quitting, and they work just hard enough to keep from getting fired. That's what you call mixed emotions. Seeing somebody you hate drive off a cliff in your car. You're glad they're gone, but not in my car.
And it begins when you understand. It begins, Marcus, when you understand. It begins when you understand. He still wants you. He still wants you. Your voice in the choir, your message, your service. He still wants you. He still wants you. You're still his daughter. You're still his baby girl. Mistakes and all. He still wants you. He's still got a plan for your life. I'm not excusing your shame. I'm not justifying your mistake. I'm telling you that his grace is bigger than your disgrace and that he still wants you. I'm telling you that God is bigger than your deepest secret, your darkest night, your daughter out of wedlock, your disgrace, your drug addiction, your problem, your pain, your self-medication, your trauma, your family crisis. The scandal in your family is not bigger than the grace of our God. I came to tell you he still wants you. Came to get to you before you end up in the potter's field, self-destructing, self-medicating, self-destroying every opportunity over something you can't get rid of. God loves you, man. That God actually loves you. He still wants you. And you thought you just zoomed in to be zooming in. God wanted you to hear this word. This particular message has got your name on it. I can't help that she don't want you. He still wants you. I can't help that they're talking about you. He still wants you. I can't help how they stare at you. God said, I still want you.
Do you believe that every person has the ability to choose the right path, the spiritually enlightened path?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not easy. It can be tremendously difficult. It's easier to quit. It's easier to succumb. It's easier to give in. But to go forward, that's tremendously difficult. You have to be bold to do that, to say, no, this is not where I'm going to be.
Think about it in your own life. Haven't you had some area of your life where you raise your standard and your life has never been the same? Maybe at one time in your life you smoked cigarettes, or you did something and you did it for years and you kept trying to change it, kept telling yourself I should. And then one day something happened. Something just clicked you over. Something took you over that kind of tipping point. And inside yourself you said, no more. And it was a very, very different experience, wasn't it? Something inside you shifted.
Most people avoid the struggle. Most people go through life avoiding pain. And when you go through life like that, something in you dies. Something in you that you never activate is lying dormant in there, that you never get a chance to call on because you have not challenged yourself. Somebody said, the land of familiarity belongs to the dead.
We're going to play to win now. We're not playing to play. We're not playing to see how we do. We're not playing for fun. Once you start getting some winning, you start changing.
You must have faith. You've got to believe in yourself.
You talk different. You walk different. All of a sudden, this isn't the same damn human being.
You've got to believe in your abilities. You've got to believe in your service, your company, your ideas, unquestionably. You've got to have faith, and that faith gives you patience.
You can change you. You'd be surprised what a little winning would do. You'd be surprised how good you'd be if you just decide to win.
At the end of those kind of days, when you feel good about yourself, self-confidence starts to rise. You know that if you can have this kind of a good day, you can have another one the next day, and those days become the weeks become the months, and the month becomes a powerful year. Self-confidence comes from the lack of neglect. If you will not neglect to do the small daily disciplines, that's where self-confidence comes from.
Everyone takes the limits of their own vision for the limits of the world. Arthur Schopenhauer. There is all around you right now the reflections of your world belief. They're so ever present that you don't even see them. All the assumption that you've made about the world, the things that are possible, what you're capable of, who you are, the very definition of what it means to be alive, all of it is completely invisible.
So whenever you feel like your professor or teacher has lost their mind because they're overwhelming you with a workload that seemingly will take up all of your time, I need you to pause and recall the reason why you made the choice to invest your time. And never lose sight of the fact that you were destined to shine. Never lose sight of the fact that you were made for this grind.
You have to see past limitations and see only potential. You can't be looking at what the chances are that you're going to get through something. You have to know in your heart of hearts, somehow, some way, you have prepared yourself well enough. You will get through this moment. You will find something on the other side.
And so accept the responsibility. See yourself as primarily responsible for your outcomes and your experiences.
And make no mistake, those limits are self-placed. And for the people that are willing to push that, for people that are willing to go beyond that, for people who understand there are things in this world that they're prepared to die for, and it is the thing that they put at the center of their life. It is the thing that they are living for. But they're not going to stop, and they understand that where the human mind thinks it will break is far short of where it will actually break.
Never lose sight of the fact that no hole is too deep for you to climb up out of. And above all else, your why will never ever allow you to withdraw.
And as long as you've done the work, as long as you've understood that every moment leading up to this has been about practice, it's been about putting in the work, it's been about having the discipline to do the things that other people are not willing to do, so when the game time comes, you're ready.
So let me tell you something. Everybody has a dream, but there is a behavior that must follow your belief system. Remember this, behavior follows belief.
I spoke at an education summit for Microsoft. I also spoke at an education summit for Apple. At the education summit for Microsoft, I would say that 70% of the executives spent about 70% of their presentations talking about how to beat Apple. At the Apple Education Summit, 100% of the executives spent 100% of their presentations talking about how to help teachers teach and how to help students learn. One is playing this way, and one is playing that way. One is playing finite, and the other one is playing infinite. Guess which one gets frustrated? So at the end of my talk at Microsoft, they gave me a gift. They gave me the new Zune when it was a thing. And let me tell you, this thing was spectacular. It was the most elegant piece of technology I'd ever used. The user interface was incredible. The design was spectacular. I absolutely loved it. It was easy to use, and it was bright and gorgeous and fantastic. It didn't work on iTunes, which is a different problem, so I couldn't use it, but it was amazing. And elegant. My God, it was elegant. So I'm sitting in the back of a taxi with a very senior Apple executive, sort of employee number 12 kind of guy. And, you know, I like to stir pots. So I turned to him, I said, you know, Microsoft gave me their new Zune, and it is so much better than your iPod Touch. And he turned to me and he said, I have no doubt. Conversation over. Because the infinite player understands sometimes you're ahead and sometimes you're behind. Sometimes your product is better and sometimes it's worse. The goal isn't to be the best every day. The goal isn't to outdo your competition every day. That's a finite construction. If I had said to Microsoft, I've got the new iPod Touch and it's so much better than your Zune, they would have said, can we see it? What does it do? React, 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 react. Finite players play to beat the people around them. Infinite players play to be better than themselves. To wake up every single day and say, how can we make our company a better version of itself today than it was yesterday? How can we create a product this week that's better than the product we created last week? We also have to play the infinite game. It's not about being ranked number one. It's not about having more followers on Twitter than your friends. It's not about outdoing anyone. It's about how to outdo yourself. It's not about selling more books or getting more TED views than somebody else. It's about how to make sure that the work that you're producing is better than the work you produced before. You are your competition. And that is what ensures you stay in the game the longest. And that is what ensures you find joy. Because the joy comes not from comparison, but from advancement.
Human beings, we can feel like we're special, and we can feel like no one's ever been through what I've been through, and the world is hard for me and easier for everyone else. Well, the reality is that's not true, and we're not special. And the things that people go through, other people have gone through, most likely much, much worse and much more significant. So that, to me, was it gave me at least some level of perspective to realize that other warriors had gone through this before. This was my turn, and this is how I'm going to try and handle it.
Okay, so how do we get to this point? How do we get to a point where we will move forward regardless of what's going on in life? Because this is something most people won't do. You know it too. Not only, it's not just you, it's most people. So if you can get you to do it, how much of an advantage does that give you over the rest of the people? A fucking huge one. So what I would like you to consider is, how can you improve this part of your life? Well, it's real simple, guys. And I learned this lesson from a guitar teacher I had 10 years ago. All right. And he said to me, he said, hey, Andy, you don't have any fucking patience. And I'm like, well, no shit, Matthew. I have fucking zero patience. And he's like, you know how you get patience? I said, how? And he says, by doing things that require patience. And that's what I want you to remember. If you need to understand and you need to develop how to operate regardless of what's going on in external circumstances when things are inconvenient, how do you get better at that? Well, you get better at that by doing things that are inconvenient intentionally. Okay, looking for opportunities to move forward when the circumstances are not ideal. All right, looking for opportunities to make things harder on yourself. Looking for opportunities to develop the mental aspect of discipline and fortitude that are going to move you forward. Guys, this is a major, major, major key to winning long-term in life. All right, I'm not talking about motherfuckers that win once. I'm not talking about, that's not my people. That's not you. Okay. I'm talking about making a life where you are a perpetual winner in any direction you decide to go. All right. And this is a skill you're going to have to develop. So number one, realize, hey, do you have this or do you not? Take inventory of how many times you're talking yourself out of everything. Take inventory how many times you justify your lack of action based upon what's going on with your mood, or your world, or your relationship, or your job. How many times are you talking yourself out of doing what you know you need to do? My guess is probably a lot more than you should be. All right. So guys, first realize that you have to build the skill. And secondly, start looking to actively build that. Now, a lot of people, you know, all the fucking weak ass motherfuckers in the world will fucking comment, why would I work to make things harder on myself? This is fucking stupid. Who the fuck is this guy? Well, this is a motherfucker that built a whole lot of shit for fucking nothing, telling you how to fucking win. Okay? That's what it is. And I'm telling you that if you want to develop this superhuman skill of kicking ass every single time, no matter what the fuck is going on in your life, no matter what's going on in your world, no matter what's going on with the weather, no matter what's going on in our crazy ass society, if you want to learn how to kick ass, regardless of all those things, you will actively seek out opportunities to strengthen this muscle that is doing shit when it's not convenient. Okay? That's called discipline. Now, discipline, guys, is the key to everything. This is why I talk about it so much. If you could be in control of your decisions and your actions 100% of the time, what could you not accomplish? And how could you be held back? And how could you not get where you want to go? Because if we're being honest with ourselves, the reason you're not where you want to be can only be one of two things. It could be one, you're working the wrong plan. And in that case, there's lots of people out there, including me, that will help you figure out how to get on the right plan. Secondly, if you are on the right plan, it's that you're not doing it long enough. You haven't been doing it long enough. Okay. And the reason that you probably haven't been doing it long enough is because you fucking talk yourself out of it every time the shit ain't convenient. Success and winning is not convenient. Success and winning is not comfortable. Success and winning in fucking life is going to be a daily fucking task for you.
I'm kind of antisocial, right? Like, if you don't know me, we're not going to have a conversation. You know, like we're not having it's not. I'm not walking up and talking to you. If I don't know you, I'm not walking up and saying hi to you. It's not happening. It's not my personality. If you say hi to me, I'll say hi. I'm not disrespectful. I'm not rude, but I'm not looking to have a bunch of conversations with people. And so that's known to me. That's not okay for the business side of my life, which is, hey, I got to talk to people, got to build relationships, had to know my commanding officer, had to know the commodore, had to know the conventional battalion commander, had to know the brigade commander, had to build relationships. Could I just talk about the war with the brigade commander? Well, I could, but what's more powerful, that I talk about war and I talk about where I'm from or where he's from or what, other things? Yes, because I want to build a relationship. Why? Because I'm trying to build trust. What? Why? Because I want him to allow me to go out there and do things in his battle space. So that's what they're asking here. They're asking you to step out of your comfort zone. Does it need to become your primary focus? No. Should you try and step out of the comfort zone? If you want to grow, if you want to have more opportunity, I would give it a try. If not, like I said, if you hate it and you feel like you're not being true to your true self, that's okay. Maybe your true self is meant to be the one that's back not getting promoted. They need somebody to do that. If it's not you, it might be somebody else.
Yeah.
It's another one of those tough questions where people, hit me with like, should I be loyal to myself? Because the obvious answer that everyone wants to hear is like, yeah, dude, the most important thing is you got to be loyal to yourself. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Okay. If that's what your priority is, then that's the most important thing. But guess what? Who can take care of the other kitchen dogs that respect you so much? Who can take a better care of them than you can? Because if you don't get promoted and Johnny Glamour Boy gets promoted because he likes to go out and schmooze the clients, and now he gets promoted, and now who's going to take care of the kitchen dogs on his time, right? Not him. He doesn't care. He got promoted not for taking care of his guys. He got promoted because he schmoozed the clients.
And so my thought process was, man, if I'm gonna give up on wind sprints, there's no way I could lead a family. I'm like, man, if I can't lead a huddle, like there's no way I could lead my son or my daughter one day. I'm like, man, if I can't show up on time, like there's no way I could lead a wife and 2 children. Like if I can't do what I say I'm gonna do, like there's no way I could be a leader, a priest, and a protector and a provider. It's no way. And so what happens is you have people that look good, they look like Tarzan, but on the inside they're Jane. You got people that know sports through and through, and to the public they're public success, but behind closed doors they're private failure. They can't give the same energy and the same passion to every aspect of their lives. Like to the thing they're passionate about, they can do it like no other. But in every aspect of their lives, they can't take that energy, that passion, that level of dedication and commitment to everything that they do and understand that it's a representation of who they are. Like at the end of the day, the core of who they are, it's almost like when you look at Adidas, you know impossible is nothing. When you look at Nike, you think just do it. And so I always ask people, when I look at you, what do I think? Excuses. Like when I look at you, do I think victory? Do I look at you, do I think, man, that's a champion right there. That's a guy that I know I can rely on. And when things go south, he's still going to show up and give me everything he got. I told a guy 2 weeks ago, I said, brother, everybody know what to do when everything go right. I said, but the only question you haven't answered for me yet is, what are you going to do when you don't get what you thought you were going to get? What are you going to do when things go wrong? What are you going to do when you work for it and you put yourself in position to get the position, then they come to you and tell you don't have it and you feel played? Will you give up on the mission that you once had to impact lives? Like the reason I thank you is because I know we need you. The reason I thank teachers all the time is I know we need them. My wife wanted to be a teacher from the time I met her and we was in the 2nd grade. And everybody at the park like, man, I want to go to the NBA. I want to go to the NFL, Major League Baseball. She's like, I want to be a teacher. I'm like, teacher? She's like, yeah, I want to impact people's lives the way my 2nd grade math teacher impacted my life when I lost both of my parents and they got murdered on the same streets that we walked down to school. I'm like, man, it's deeper than that. I knew it was deeper than that when I met her in 8th grade math class, and our math teacher made us recite a proverb before school every morning. And one day we're walking in lunch and he tapped my shoulder and he said, man, you're going to marry that young lady one day. I said, you lost your mind. I need to get out of your class. I said, it was cool to teach me math. Now you're talking about my life. Like, you tripping. And he ended up walking my wife down the aisle at our wedding. And when he handed her off, he walked by me and winked. He said, I told you. But I'm sitting there thinking, how did he see it? And I started to backtrack and I said, I know exactly how he saw it. I was on a corner in my neighborhood one night with my uncles, and 2 of them are doing 40 years and 20 years in prison, federal penitentiary. And I was just standing there. Like I wasn't doing no drugs, no drinking, none of that. I was a ball player. And a red Dodge Ram pickup truck pulled up. My uncle taps my leg and says, Ink, who is that? I said, man, that looks like my 8th grade math teacher and basketball coach. They said, what does he want? I said, what's up, Oak? How you doing, sir? He said, what are you doing? I said, I'm hanging out. He said, no, you didn't hear me. What are you doing out here? I said, I'm hanging out. He said, get in the truck. Take you home. Got in his truck, we rode down the block. I got out. He said to me, son, you're special. I said, all right, man, whatever. I said, son, I see something in you.
Sometimes, even if you're the most highly motivated person in the world, that grind starts to beat you down a little bit. And that's when you have to stop looking at the short-term thing, because that's not getting you to get it done. And you got to look, okay, what is the long-term goal that I'm looking at? What am I really trying to get done in the long term? And you say, oh, you know what? I'm actually waking up today early so I can be ahead of the curve, so I can sell more of these widgets or whatever, so that I can buy a house. And you know what? Today matters. Today matters. This decision that I'm making right now is that first step. It's me taking one stroke, swimming in the right direction, heading towards the shore. And if I don't take this, I'm not making any progress.
You must understand that failure is required. There can be no victory without a struggle attached to it. You don't deserve a victory without a failure. Failure does exactly what is necessary to make you better, to put you on the path at the right moment. And just because you fail, it doesn't mean that it's over. But when you get pushed back, you come back. You come back strong. You come back with the willingness. You come back with a purpose. Do not be afraid to fail. Failure is required. Champions cannot be champions without failures. And when that opportunity comes for you to rise up with a full heart. Don't let it confuse you. Don't let it misuse you. Don't just accept it, but understand it. What good is a victory? What good is a win if you don't fail? You got to understand that this is what life is all about. Failure. What is it doing to you now?
When I think about the word dominate, I think about all the synonyms: to pursue, prevail, think, execute, and dominate. When I played college basketball, I sat there on the bench and I was very frustrated. Sometimes I had a bad attitude, but eventually I got my attitude together and I began to realize, you know what? If I just dominate the role my coach gives me, maybe that will position me to get promoted. So when he gave me 5 minutes, I dominated those 5 minutes, and that promoted me to 10 minutes. When I dominated for 10 minutes, that promoted me to 15 minutes. Before I knew it, I carved out a niche and I dominated. I became the top 6 man in the country. If we look around the business world, we have household names, and they're only household names because they dominate their industry. I need you to dominate every single day you go to work. If you're a company, you created a niche, your job now that you have the niche is to dominate your industry until you become a household name. I did no different when we started our speaking business. I got paid $25 in gift certificates the first time I spoke.
It's certainly something worth considering. And what is nothingness? Well, Alan Watts summed it up more than eloquently in a statement he made when he said that nothing is what your head looks like to your eyes, and that nothingness is what's watching. And I truly can't think of a better description. Nothingness and consciousness coexists in that space behind your eyes. You can't have something here without having that nothing there. So you need to be aware of that nothingness, the nothingness that lies behind your eyes, because it is within that nothingness that lies consciousness. And it's all connected. It's connected to ourselves, it's connected to each other, and it's connected to everything in the universe. You need to open your minds to see this. And once you've seen it, the more you can begin to realize it. And the more you realize it, you can quite literally feel it physically. It's like a warmth and a rise in frequency in your body. The true realization that there is no other. There is only one. And all that truly exists within that singularity is love. There are only two human emotions, love and fear. All other emotions stem either directly or indirectly from these two base emotions. But fear is an illusion created by this reality, because all that truly exists within the singularity is love. That's all there is, and love is all there can possibly be, because there is only one. There is only the singularity. So how can there be any other emotion at all? Indeed, how can there even be any concept of emotion? Within the singularity there exists only the singularity, and the singularity is love. There is nothing else.
What we've been developing is a population of emotionally weak people who perceive themselves in terms of victims. When you have challenges in life and you meet them, it brings something out of you. So, for instance, when my arthritis came, and I didn't know what else am I going to do at that time. I wanted to be a footballer. I wanted to be a footballer since I was a kid. And now my joints are swelling up, and they're telling me I'm going to have to pack it in. Now I thought, I'm not packing it in. I want to give it a go. So I went to a club called Hereford United that was a league club then. And I played the whole season with rheumatoid arthritis. Every morning when we were training and warming up for training on cold English mornings, I was in agony. And I would be limping and what have you, and the players would say, "Oh, what's wrong now, Ike?" And I would give a different excuse. "Oh, I've got a bit of a pull. Oh, I think I've got a bit of a blister." But actually, it was the same thing. all the time. And I played the season out, and eventually it got so bad that I couldn't carry on. But it brought something out of me, this determination not to give up and not to give in. And then I decided, because when I was a kid, I was always reading newspapers, and I was very interested in journalism. So I became a journalist, and long story short, I eventually became a television presenter.
Well, very well known back then.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I was a national television presenter in those days. And when I look at my life now, you see, and what I'm doing, my life before, which appeared to be a series of random events. Same with you. You've had your challenges in life. What has it done? It's made you the person you are. You wouldn't be the person you are now without them.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, well, I regret that. Well, the thing to regret is if you don't learn from the experience. That's the regret. But learning from the experience, well, you've had a gift. What are you regretting for? And so I went into journalism because I was very interested in that. And I eventually became this television presenter. And when you look at my life, as I was saying, all the different elements of it, including going into journalism and seeing the media for what it is, going into politics with the Green Party and seeing politics for what it is, well, I didn't know at the time, but they were all giving me very, very important understandings that would be useful later on. And then what happened is, this is a kind of bizarre story, but it happened. I was in the Green Party, and I was still working for the BBC as a television presenter, and both were leaving me completely cold. The BBC, it's not a great organisation to work for if you care about the truth and you care about more than the official version of everything. And I also was looking at the Green Party politics from the inside and seeing that it was just like every other party. And so what do I do with my life now? Because I can't go on with either of these. And what happened was a very strange thing happened, because in the early part of, what would it be, 1989, I started having this feeling that when I was in a room alone, I wasn't alone. And there was an atmosphere there. There's something there. And through 1989, this got more and more and more powerful.
And to surround yourself with people who believe the same and who are rejoicing in your accomplishments and unhappy when you fail, right? And you're comparing yourself to your accomplishments of yesterday and not to someone else's today, so that you're not jealous and bitter. And you put your own house in order so that you're not cursing the world when some of its disarray might be your fault. And you're trying to pursue something meaningful, and you're doing your best to tell the truth and all of that. And then you see what happens. Who the hell are you? You think you're a miracle of some bloody bizarre sort. We've been around for 3.5 billion years. Every single one of your relatives propagated successfully. And here you are, against all possible odds, in this world of hell in some sense, and bitterness and tyranny and malevolence. And yet God only knows what's inside you, this capacity for consciousness, the capacity to confront potential and to turn it into something good. That's us, man. That's the Western story. That's the individual as the cornerstone of the state. That's our responsibility, and it really is who we are. And so we need to know that, and we need to remember it, and we need to act it out. And then maybe we can see what we can do about it, and see how good we could make things. And maybe that would be the purpose of your damn life, right? Not to be happy. It's like, there's problems to be solved. Be happy after you solve the goddamn things, right? So I learned, because I looked at dark things, that I learned that the light was more powerful than the darkness as far as that I was concerned, and that people were capable, each of us, of remarkable things, and that we need to know that that's what we are. We're this consciousness that confronts potential with all its catastrophe. That's what we are. That's what makes us in the image of God. That's what gives us our intrinsic value. And that idea that we have intrinsic value, that's the bedrock presupposition of our state. We're going to question that, or we're going to live it out. Better to live it out and find out who you are. Thank you very much. might be say that someone who is incapable of cruelty is a higher moral being than someone who is capable of cruelty. And I would say, and this follows Jung as well, that that's incorrect, and it's dangerously incorrect, because if you are not capable of cruelty, you are absolutely a victim to anyone who is.
Ultimately, if you're going to have lasting change in anything, you're really talking about just raising your standards. I mean, I always tell people, if you want to know how to change your life, I give it to you in 3 words, boring as it sounds: raise your standards. And what does that mean? Corny as it sounds. Raise your standards. Well, thank you for the breakthrough thought, Tony. I'm glad I wasted my time watching this little email with you. But think about it. Lasting change is different than a goal. You don't always get your goals, but you always get your standards. Maybe it would help you is to think about it this way. I try to explain standards to people with a different set of words. Think of it as everybody in life gets their musts. They don't get their shoulds.
You can learn all the techniques in the world. If you don't believe in yourself, it won't happen for you.
Jot these questions down. Question number 1, what makes life valuable? Interesting philosophical question. What makes life valuable? Human life. Now that we find ourselves on this spinning planet, a chance to live a human life, what would make it valuable? Second question, what makes life worthwhile? Third question, what makes life work well? Good practical question. Now, under work well, we could put, spiritually, socially, personally, economically, physically. There's a lot of different aspects to making life work well. But that'll suffice, because those questions, I think, are very vitally important. What makes life worthwhile? What makes it valuable? What makes it work well? And all the aspects. If your life doesn't work well in some aspects, what would you fix? And I've got some good answers on that. There's usually about a half a dozen things that makes 80% of the difference. That's the formula.
You got to focus on you. And as you convince you, as you sell yourself every day, you will begin to see a difference in the things that you're doing. Selling yourself on your ability to perform a job, to achieve a certain objective. Telling yourself every day, here I go again. And I got what it takes. This is my day, and nothing out here is going to stop me.
One thing I've learned in the last, 33 years of working with people from now over 100 countries, 4 million people, is human beings absolutely follow through on who they believe they are. Most people, if they really look at how they're living their life today, it's based on a set of standards, a set of beliefs that they made choices about 10, 20, 30 or more years ago. I mean, very often we made decisions in our youth or very young about what to believe, about what we were capable of, about who we are as a person, and that becomes the glass ceiling, if you will, that controls us.
The other thing is, take full responsibility for your life. Accept where you are and the responsibility that you're going to take yourself where you want to go. Someone said we have 2 primary choices in life. We can either accept conditions as they exist, or we can take the responsibility to change them.
So let me give you an example. Now, you said you're the king of hustle, right? But I would actually debate that. When I talk about hustle, I talk about the people who believe that you have to work an ungodly number of hours to be successful. There is a much healthier way. So there are 2 different types of people who are talking about entrepreneurship today. There's the type of people who talk about entrepreneurship purely in the physical sense. It's about the number of hours you work. It's about the number of phone calls. And of course, hard work has its place. But then you see the rise of books by people like Michael Singer, who wrote the book, The Surrender Experiment. And if you read the book, it's kind of cool. This guy built a $1 billion software company, and he talks about how he did that by surrendering, by going within, by having a daily meditation practice. Now, in your case, I believe you're doing it. You're also moving to that approach, but you're doing it unconsciously. When I listened to you speak at A-Fest, and you spoke about how you sit down, you relax, and you thinkitate, and these ideas come into you, you're tapping into something. Tom, you're tapping into your intuition. That is a far more efficient way than trying to hustle to get these ideas. You're going within. So you're already doing one of the first steps. Now, the second part is how can you optimize your rate of going from idea to reality. That's the second part of bending reality. And there are a significant number of tools that you can put into play to help you do that by working on your inner states. For example, one is creative visualization. There's so many studies that show that what you visualize in your mind, you can help accelerate in the world. For example, one study called the finger abduction experiment basically had people exercise their fingers, okay, like physically exercising fingers, and then a control group of people visualize themselves exercising their fingers. And what they found is that one group grew finger strength by, let's say about 10%, the other group by 9%, really close, just by visualizing their fingers. Now, the same thing happens in sales. You can actually accelerate your sales closing rate by visualizing the outcome. And we don't really understand how it works, but we know it works. And the same thing happens in your entrepreneurial life. When you get a clear vision of the business you want to create, of the lifestyle you want to create, you move towards that faster. And so meditation to me is not just about going zen. It's not just about like focusing on your breathing. It's about knowing how to tap in, which you do so well, and then knowing how to get clear on what you want and to focus on that vision for a few minutes every day.
I am afraid that too many times we have put so much focus on teaching you to be good seed that we haven't taught you the power of good soil. And so when we come to soil issues, the seed ignores the soil. We flick the channel. That has nothing to do with me. We close our eyes because we have been taught to be good seed, but we have not been taught to pay attention to soil. And yet the Bible is clear. Jesus says the soil went forth sowing seed. And some fell by the wayside. Some fell amongst rocks. Some fell amongst thorns. The whole text is about environment. Look at you and look at your environment. Have you been positioned to flourish? Positioning has a lot to do with flourishing. To be in an environment, in a family that supports you. My sister and I were talking the other day. I was telling her what an amazing person she is, that all of our lives together and all the things that God did in my life, not once in all of the years that I've known her, and she was there when Mama had me, have I ever known her to be jealous of me. Not once, not ever. She has always been my cheerleader and my greatest fan. And she said, how could I be jealous of you? You're my brother. I said, a lot of people have siblings that hate them, that are jealous of them, that hope they choke. And some of my development has to be that God planted me in an environment of people that supported me. My brother, my sister, my mother, my father, they all supported me. You can have good seed, but if you've been in bad soil, people who hated you, environments that denied you, education that underserved you, communities that limited you, mentalities that poisoned you. Oh, do you hear what I'm saying? If your soil wasn't right, it doesn't mean that you're not right, but if your soil wasn't right, it's going to affect how you root and how you grow. And you might grow a little bit. The Bible says you can grow for a while, but then the thorns will choke you out, or the rocks will not have enough soil for your roots to grow. Are you blaming God for something you ought to be blaming the soil for? You cannot take a peach seed and plant it in a teaspoon of dirt and expect it to grow. Though the teaspoon of the dirt is the same size as the peach seed, it will not grow. The seed will only grow when it is planted in something bigger than itself. And I want to know, where are you planted this morning? are you planted in something bigger than you? Or have you always been planted in teacups? Surrounded by little dirt, little resources, small-minded people, narrow, limited places that never let you stretch to reach your capacity. Sometimes you gotta go where the corn is.
The best place is actually our podcast, is Quick Brain, K-W-I-K Brain. It's really my last name. I didn't change it to do what I did. It's my father's name, my grandfather's name, but this is a new venture for us. We publish a couple episodes a week, and it's really, every episode is less than 20 minutes. It's to be able to say that these are brain hacks for busy people who want to learn faster and achieve more. Everything from read a book a week to remember people's names to my top 10 favorite brain foods to how to eliminate or add new habits. That's the best place. People go to quickbrain.com and they could join a private Facebook group there and post questions for future episodes, and also download free. We give them $100 worth of brain training as a gift. Or any social media. You know I love our social media. Yes. So anything at Jim Quick on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook.